I thought I'd share my experiences on growth post MVP stage. So after you're actually in the market, you've got some revenue, but you're trying to get traction and get to seven figures. Once you get 10 million in ARR or in revenue, then how do you get to 2 million? How do you get to 5 million? How do you keep on growing? And I think there's different stages, at least based on my experience. Thought I'd relate, what I've seen work there. The first thing I'd say, growth post MVP stage is, well, how do you get to MVP stage? And I'm going to talk here about my last two startups. And so HL, which is short for HiddenLevers, and Fraction, for which I don't yet have a good abbreviation, so I'll just call it Fraction. So HL, our target in the MVP stage was 100 clients or bust. So that was how we were running that business. It was a SaaS business, selling to financial advisors. So essentially 100 financial advisors buying our software, or subscribing to our software and using it. And with Fraction, our similar sort of MVP, cut line. And with both businesses, I should know, with both startups, we defined a specific date. So in the case of HiddenLevers, it was July 4th. For some reason, we picked July 4th. It was July 4th of 2011. So we started January 1st of 2010. We gave ourselves about 18 months. So July 4th of 2011, if we didn't have 100 clients, we were going to shut down. That was a goal that we set in advance to force ourselves to either get there or move on. With Fraction, we started in the summer of 2022, and we gave ourselves until January of 2023. So really, we were measuring, I think, from August 1st, is kind of what we called our launch date, August 1st of 2022. And we gave ourselves 6 months, is what we said. If we can't have 10 clients by the end of January 2023, we're shutting down. So 10 clients or bust. So that was sort of step one for us, is just by hook or by crook, how do we get out and get that number of clients? With HiddenLevers, what did that end up being? Well, before you can get 100 clients, frankly, before you can even get a few, or certainly before you can get 10, you've got to have some notion of product market fit. And so this is a goal. This isn't a way to get there. But you get that MVP out in market, and in this case, software for financial advisors that did portfolio stress testing that helped them answer questions like, what happens to my my clients' portfolios? I don't know, based on the election, based on interest rates falling faster than expected, or interest rates maybe staying more static than expected. All kinds of different economic scenarios. That's what HiddenLevers was, a tool around that you could play around with those and see the impacts. So we were putting that in front of financial advisors, and they were finding it modestly interesting. And it wasn't until we realized that, they really need PDF output. That was what it turned out. They needed a report that showed them a summary of all of these results. That was what got them to buy. And as we were able to get that story out there via webinar, like we got lucky with some webinars, honestly, that folks in the industry said, hey, why don't you join and showcase your product? Some of that, a lot of it just literal blocking and tackling, where my co-founder was reaching out to advisors and doing demos and just pitching. And that got us to that goal. And some friendly industry press. I should add that getting here, it was, I'm going to call it just straight up sales. It was industry press, which is super important. And that helped. And those, by the way, those were write-ups that my co-founder went out and just met with people in person or got on the phone with them and told the story and got the press. So that was earned. It was true earned media. We didn't have any money for anything other than earned media at that point. We did zero Google ads, we had zero traditional ad spend at that point. So it was sales. It was just hand-to-hand combat sales, industry press, and the last piece would have been the webinars that I mentioned, and then some emails that we sent. Honestly, we didn't even have that many folks to email, but we did do some email. That was basically it to get to that line. And then here we were more building. We had connections and contacts. So from prior prior businesses. So a lot of this was based on working our own, what I'll call that is working our own network. So a lot of this was working our own network. And then there was some amount of conferences in there too, and then some amount of outbound email that we started doing. So that was just how you get to step one of growth, where you have a product, or a service, you have an offering, and it's starting to resonate with the client base, start to get it out there. A lot of it's hand-to-hand combat, but you get to that minimum point where like, okay, this business is viable. How do you get from there to say the first real stage, $1 million in ARR, maybe even $2 million in ARR? Well, with this company, with HiddenLevers, being a SaaS play, targeting an industry where we had maybe 300,000 to 400,000 financial advisors in the US who could potentially be customers. So at that time, email marketing was starting to get used, but it was still relatively new. That became an important weapon for us in our growth. So if I answer the question, well, what was the growth story to get to 2 million ARR? How did we do that? It was a combo of email plus conferences. Conferences were extremely high ROI and effective for us. Never underestimate, the right industry conference. So email plus conferences plus a good free trial funnel. So those pieces work together, where we were capturing leads on our website via free trial funnel, and we were closing those folks at a pretty good clip. That, along with, just doing the hard work, because it took us, starting 2010, and I don't think that we crossed the 2 million ARR mark until 2016. We crossed the 1 million ARR mark maybe in 2013, 14, and then we got to 2 million. It was probably around 2016. So it took a while. This was not a short journey, 6-7 years to get to this point, and it was just, using those channels that helped us get there. But it was fundamentally the same product. Of course, we were always enhancing, always adding features and capabilities, but fundamentally it was the same product that got us to that point. And then with Fraction, I would say the difference here was that we invested a lot more, meaning in terms of getting to a 2 million ARR for Fraction, we invested a lot more. Now this is the thing that changes throughout time periods. The methods of marketing that work in each era are different, and frankly it changes like every 18 months, every 2 years. So beware of marketing advice that is stale, because it's just stale. It doesn't work anymore. This is more present, getting to 2 million ARR, something that's happened, obviously, with all this is within the last 2 years for Fraction. And so here, LinkedIn has been, not surprisingly, a big part of that, but email was still effective until probably July or August of last year, so about a year ago. Email, that world changed, and ask any marketer and they will tell you that the wheels fell off, and email has become a heck of a lot harder than it used to be. But some of our growth was driven by these two. It was also, again, never underestimate a good conference. That has been part of the strategy for us here. And then finally, again, old-fashioned networking and referrals have been a big piece of the puzzle. So that's how we got to this stage with both of these companies. Taking that approach, once you have the MVP, once you've got something that's working for clients, and repeating it and just using some different advertising channels to get out there. Where I think it gets real interesting, what I'll talk about next, is how do you go from that stage? So say you've gotten to 2 million ARR. How do you get from 2 million ARR, at least in our case, in my past experience, with a couple of recent companies, how do you get from there to the next stage, say to double that or triple that?